This art, which can be appreciated by people of all ages, is heard from a television set where two very young friends are sitting. The boy asks his friend behind the TV what he is watching there. The friend replies that the dancers on TV are called b-boys. On the screen, in the spotlight, to fiery music, b-boys perform their fiery dances. Seeing this, young Puck falls in love and starts dancing every day. His life is filled with countless training sessions. Soon enough, dancing becomes everything in his life. He wanted to become a nationally known b-boy and continue to win. He strived to shine better than everyone else, thinking that it would always be like that. But in an instant his light went out. Puck is at the computer in his room, aggressively clicking on the keyboard and swearing at the monitor screen. More and more insults are poured onto the monitor with a freeze frame of the end of the game. In a fit of anger he turns away and throws his headphones on the bed. At that moment, the door to his room opens and a package of snacks flies into the back of his head. His neighbor demands that he shut up and not interfere with his preparation for the civil service exam. Now he is an ordinary high school student, lying on his bed and crunching crackers. During the competition, the stage equipment collapsed and crushed his leg. He can no longer dance, and he began to live a normal life. Opening his mouth wide in a yawn, surrounded by many schoolchildren, Puck heads off to study. Even after getting to school, he still wants to sleep terribly. While Puck is standing at the locker, his trouser leg rises, and his prosthetic leg is faintly visible from under it. After looking around, Puck hastily adjusts his trouser leg and goes to class. The lesson passes, and the students leave for lunch with the bell. Puck is in no hurry to leave. He looks thoughtfully out the window, remaining at his desk. Left alone, Puck finally gets up and goes out. Two guys come into the classroom and walk towards him, chatting with each other about something. Puck bumps shoulders with one of them on the way out. Looking up, he catches the angry gaze of a thug head and shoulders above himself. They separate. Puck decides that he is too scary and it is better to ignore him. Excitement is visible on his face. The thug turns to his frail comrade, asking who this guy is and why he is limping, then explains to the thug that because of dancing, Puck's leg was amputated in high school. Puck shudders, realizing that they are talking about him. He listens to the conversation. The thug expresses pity, finally understanding what happened to his leg. They call him poor and laugh. Puck is furious at what he heard, but still leaves the class. He himself does not like limping because of the prosthesis. These thoughts, and the thought that he will have to live without dancing, do not leave his head. He walks through the park, talking to himself. Puck is annoyed that they say whatever they want. He notes that such words make him angry. Things gradually heat up. His face is distorted with anger. He can't stand such people. Memories flash through his head where he stands with a poster at a big dance competition. Then Puck fought with real professionals in his field and defeated them. Now, because of the prosthesis, he cannot dance. Thoughts about this plunge him into despondency. From powerlessness, Puck curses dirtily at his feet. His gaze finally faded. Puck can't believe that he might have already given up. He is brought out of his thoughts by a picture right along the way. The guys who met in class today surrounded a fragile girl and were talking to her about something. The thug tells the girl that she said that she would give 5 million won if he showed his physical strength. She replies that she just asked if he plays sports. The brute shows off his muscles and smiles. He tells her to look at his body for herself, that he spends a lot of money to maintain it. The girl replies that she won't give her money for it. She's not fascinated by fake muscles, and people who think it's cool are ordinary fools. Her words anger the thug. Veins appear on his face from anger. Hanging over the girl, he glares menacingly at her and demands to repeat what he said. He shouts how she dared to insult his beautiful body, and at that time a heavy stone flies into his head. The brute falls and hits his head on the ground with a crash. His comrade only manages to curse in surprise and receives the same stone in the back of his head. The two offenders are lying on the ground unconscious. The girl comes closer, examines them. She is nervous and in complete confusion about what just happened. Puck stands to the side, throwing another stone in his palms. His face expresses irritation. He says that their brains have already turned into muscles. Having thrown away the stone, Puck approaches the girl, asks if she is okay. The girl thanks him and confirms that she is okay. Puck asks her why she communicated with these goons. The girl replies that she communicated with them on the recommendation of the club, which surprises Puck. He notes that it is dangerous. In the middle of the conversation, the girl screams, warning Puck of the danger. The big man stands up to his full height and already raises his fist over Puck's head, and with a slight movement to the side, he easily dodges a blow to the back. Puck makes fun of the thug, saying that in this way he will quickly run out of steam. In response, the angry big man makes it clear that Puck won't get away with this. Taking a closer look, the thug recognizes Puck. He notes that Puck is the lame woman who lost her leg during the dance. Puck is angry at the comment repeated by the goon for the second time. Smiling evilly, Puck says that the thug's face has begun to irritate him greatly. The big man defiantly hits his palm with his fist, asking what dance technique Puck plans to defeat him with. Puck replies that the most popular technique of b-boys, thread. The pack on the ground spins quickly around an axis, explaining that this is a movement in which the arms and legs move back and forth, like threading a thread through an eye. His specialty is doing freezing by lifting his legs and damaging the thread. The goon looks at him sideways in bewilderment, and Puck finally declares his readiness. Raising an embittered look at the thug, Puck abruptly storms towards him. He takes off from his place and, spinning vertically in his body, directs his leg towards the surprised face of his opponent. A moment later he stands up on his hands, his leg leaves the ground and with a sharp blow his heel meets the bully's nose. For a moment, Puck freezes in an unnatural position, standing on his hands, catching the girl's frightened gaze. Finally, having completed his dance trick, Puck closes his eyes with a proud expression on his face, crosses his legs to the side and says the name of the trick, freeze. Puck plops down and sits down on the ground, complaining that this is all complete crap. His legs hurt terribly. He's worried about whether his prosthesis has been damaged. He muttered that he should try again at home. Looking up at the girl, after a couple of moments of silence, he declares that he is leaving home. The girl asks to wait a minute, stopping him. She thanks Puck for his help. Their eyes meet. Looking at him, the girl notes the smoothness of Puck's movements and asks if he's interested in workout. Puck turns around in surprise. They stand under the light of a lantern. Looking into each other's eyes, the girl smiles, while Puck gazes into her eyes. After some time, Puck abruptly turns away and refuses. The girl is left alone in the park, completely confused. Puck goes home. Puck comes home, washes his face, and reminisces about whether he did basic physical training when he was dancing. Already at home, sitting at the computer and eating snacks, Puck remembers a girl. She is a first grader from his school. He wonders how long she has been in that club. He decides to see how she will be at school. Puck spends another sleepless night playing the computer, aggressively tapping on the keyboard, and is distracted from his studies by a shout from behind the door that he has to go to school. Once again he goes to school, and on the way he complains about how he wants to sleep. He stops in the park, wearily exclaiming about what a blissful morning it is in the park. Puck falls tiredly onto the bench, complaining that he doesn't plan to go anywhere after school anyway. He goes to sleep for a couple of lessons. Awakening finds Puck as the pigeons who have taken a fancy to him begin to coo in his face. Having dispersed the pigeons, he rushes off the bench and immediately grabs the phone, completely unaware of how much time has passed. Realizing that the time has come to 4 o'clock, he exclaims rude abuse. Puck is concerned that he can't go home now, otherwise he will get a scolding from his mom. Glancing at the sports ground nearby, he notices a girl at the horizontal bar. She is standing by the equipment, dressed in a sports uniform. Her hair is pulled into a ponytail. It is clear that she has come for training. Taking a closer look, he recognizes her as yesterday's girl from the park, which involuntarily escapes his lips. After briefly examining the apparatus, the girl grabs it while jumping and begins training, slowly pulling herself up. Puck notes the beauty of the girl, watching her workout, and catches himself thinking that it would be nice to take a walk with her. At one point, Puck's face is distorted with surprise. He is watching something incredible. Before his eyes, the girl, having made an exit on the apparatus, stretched her legs vertically upward without any recoil. He does not believe that this is possible. However, having performed a rotation on one arm, the girl breaks away from the projectile into the air. Puck falls into a stupor. She flew right before his eyes, performing a flip in the air. Just barely straining, her hand reaches back and just as deftly grabs the horizontal bar, then successfully supporting her own weight. She exhales with relief, saying that she managed to do a somersault better than yesterday. She smiles tiredly. Turning her head, she met the gaze of a blushing and delighted Puck. His eyes literally shone with 2 stars. Out of surprise, the girl gets scared, screams and flops off the projectile, hitting her butt on the ground. Puck says that it was amazing. After looking closely, she recognizes him as an acquaintance from yesterday. Puck continues to praise her flip, calling it amazing, and he wants the same thing himself. His memories return to what he saw as a child, the b-boy dance that his brother showed him. These movements and feelings that he thought were cool, he felt again while looking at her. He wants to try circuit training and asks her to teach him. At that moment, Puck felt that his former radiance had returned again. From the kitchen on the first floor, Dong Ho's mother shouts, inviting him to dinner. Puck doesn't answer. His angry mother comes up the stairs to his room. She swears at Puck and his computer, threatening to sell it. Approaching Puck's room, Mom discovers a note on the monitor screen standing by the door. She rips off the note, and, after reading it, turns around in surprise. Puck asks not to disturb and not open the door. He gets himself into shape. Meanwhile, Puck is in his room practicing push-ups hard. Through force he counts down through his teeth, 30, 33. Having finished the push-ups, Puck sits on the floor and struggles to catch his breath, noting that this won't be easy. He remembers his meeting with the girl in the morning on the site. Hearing then about Puck's desire to join the club, the girl beamed with joy, unable to believe it. Then she bowed and gratefully asked Puck to take care of her. He didn't even immediately understand that they were talking about joining the club. She introduced herself. Her name was Kwon Jeannie. Kwon recognized him as a second-grade high school student. Puck asks without formalities, because he just wants to work out with her. Pointing his finger at her, Park says that Kwon will be like a teacher to him. Puck explains to her misunderstanding that at school they don't address teachers by name either. Kwon thinks he's kind of weird, but agrees to tell him the basics. Pak emotionally asks her to tell her how she managed such a move on the apparatus, and whether he can do it too. Park has to agree with Kwon's answer. This element is very difficult, and he will have to practice a lot. Kwon, rubbing his palms, suggests first assessing Park's abilities. Kwon suggests that Park start small, doing push-ups and pull-ups according to his endurance. Full of enthusiasm, Puck starts doing push-ups without showing any outstanding results. Pak doesn't do any better with pull-ups. He also has difficulty performing this exercise. Having failed to achieve results, Park droops and complains about his lack of talent. Kwon calms him down. It is difficult for him to perform new movements. Park turns to Kwon, asking if this is enough to imitate her movements. Hearing this, Kwon realizes that she has hastened to conclusions and decides to show him the basics. Kwon invites Park to take a look. She will show him one element. Having climbed onto the apparatus, Kwon explains that first you need to hang on the horizontal bar. She swings on the apparatus like on a swing, explaining her actions to Puck. Along with the next swing, she slightly bends her arms and tenses them. With effort, she pulls herself up on the apparatus, lifting her head over the horizontal bar. A moment later, she carries half her body over the horizontal bar and tucks her knees. Following this, Kwon smoothly stretches himself vertically on the horizontal bar, performing a forceful exit. Looking at her, Puck notes that it doesn't look difficult, but he himself doubts that he can do the same. Having heard from Kwon that for this he needs to do pull-ups at least 10 times, he is extremely surprised, because he cannot do pull-ups even once. Puck listens carefully. This is the very beginning. He needs to build muscle, otherwise they won't be able to move forward. She says honestly that this is a bit difficult for a beginner, but for now Pak just needs to learn how to just pull himself up. Puck looks at the projectile and realizes that he can't do anything without a foundation. Seeing him in thought, Kwon panics and clutches her head, thinking that she said too much. Pak himself is determined and everything is clear to him. If he manages to make a way out by force, then he will be able to repeat her movements. Kwon is surprised, confused, confirms Park's assumption, but adds that first he needs to be able to pull himself up. With the knowledge of how, it's only a matter of time for Puck, and he replies that it will be easy. Puck continues to stubbornly do push-ups in his room, thinking about how to build up his stamina and move further. Meanwhile, Mom is standing in the kitchen, thinking about what Puck has been doing in the room for several days now. They shout about delivery from behind the door, and behind the front door Mom finds an exhausted courier surrounded by many boxes. Puck, coming up from behind, explains to his mother that this is a delivery for him. The surprised mother asks what it all means. Puck asks his mom to help him move the boxes, and they start moving them to the second floor. A tired mother leans against the wall and complains that she sold his computer, and he is still buying something. Puck quickly collects his purchase, which turns out to be a pull-up machine. Mom is surprised what Pak is doing and why he suddenly started playing sports. He shoos her away and says that he will come down by meal time. Inspecting the assembled horizontal bar, Pak motivates himself by the fact that practice will not come to him on its own. With the confidence that he just needs to tighten his muscles, Pak confidently jumps onto the apparatus. The attempt was unsuccessful. With his arms spread wide, Puck was simply shaking ridiculously on the horizontal bar. After some time, a joyful cry from Puck is heard from the window onto the street, having managed to do one pull-up. A new school day begins, the school bell rings and it's lunchtime. Kwan takes notes in her notebook in her class, thinking that to create a club, she needs more members and needs a substitute. A week has passed since she met Puck. She sees him as a little unusual, but a good guy. He is weaker than she thought. It seemed that he would have good endurance. She considers such a decision careless. Her thoughts about the club are interrupted by Puck, shouting, calling her a teacher, and asking if she has free time. With this action, Puck makes her blush. She is completely confused and red as a tomato. Kwan runs up to Park and quickly pushes him out of the office, leaving them alone in the corridor. Kwan asks Park not to call her a teacher outside the club. Park doesn't understand what's going on and replies that he didn't come to argue. Park tells Kwan that he has finally achieved success and pumped up his muscles, which greatly surprises her. They reach the training ground and Puck jumps onto the apparatus. For some time, Puck just slowly swings, holding on to the horizontal bar. Finally, swinging his outstretched legs, Pak gradually gains the amplitude of swings on the horizontal bar. Having swung sufficiently, Puck draws his legs in and sharply pulls himself up. Having pushed himself up to his chest over the horizontal bar, Pak repeats the procedure in his head. He needs to push a little. Gritting his teeth, Puck forcefully pushes himself up and makes a forceful exit with a cry of victory. Hovering on the projectile, Park asks Kwan, frozen in surprise, if he did everything right. Unable to believe what she saw, Kwan replies that he did everything right. She is surprised at how quickly he succeeded. Kwan is amazed, even though this is just the basics. But in just a week he achieved the result that she had been working towards for 3 months. Satisfied, Puck declares that even if this is only once so far, next time there will be much more. Park's hands were tired of holding on, and he collapsed to the ground with a roar. An excited Kwan ran up to him. Kwan looked down and examined Park's legs with even greater surprise. When Park asks if everything is okay, Kwan draws attention to his leg. Park, chuckling, rolls up his prosthetic leg and reassures Kwan, saying that he was just injured once. She is amazed that he was able to achieve such a result with his prosthesis. Finally collecting his thoughts, Kwan asks Park a single question about how he did it. Kwan remembers how they started a week ago, when Park couldn't do even one pull-up. She's surprised at how much he's progressed. Even if it's the basics, it's still very hard. Kwan is amazed that he was able to achieve all this with just one leg. Kwan turns to Park, asking if he has done anything before. Puck tells her that a long time ago he danced and trained his endurance for some time. Park shares that he was inspired to do this by the skills she demonstrated a week ago. Park notes to Kwan that it looks like he pulled his legs hard before the climb. When she almost climbed up, the force she lifted with her legs was similar to using her arms to get up. In conclusion, Puck explains that if he hadn't seen this part, he probably wouldn't have gotten up. He was lucky. Kwan doesn't believe in his luck. He just figured out the force lifting trick just by seeing it. Now she has an incentive to train him because she sees signs of hard work. Kwan says it's amazing. She thought he was an unusual person from the very beginning. Smiling kindly, Kwan praises him for his efforts, saying that he is amazing. Hearing the praise, Puck is discouraged. He remembers pictures of the past in which he was also praised and admired. Having emerged from the memory soon enough, he modestly replies that it may be so. Kwan, confirming his words, gets up and says that now she wants to form a club as soon as possible in order to enjoy training. Picking up her enthusiasm, Pak stands up to his full height and exclaims about creating a friendly team and club with her. Kwan stands silently, lost in thought, and Park asks what she plans to name the club. Kwan's answer completely discourages Park. She doesn't know and wants to name the club Happy School Life. After a while, they leave and head to a cafe, where they take a table. When asked about the club, she sheepishly replies that she hasn't even thought about what to do next. It's clear from the story that when she entered high school, her goal was to start a club. Park listens to Kwan's story. There is no clear distribution. but you can think about it when there are more participants. She still can't find the members of the club and admits that she almost gave up, but her appa pushed her to continue. Kwon approaches Park about his reasons for taking up the sport. Puck fusses, answering that he was just bored. She was the real reason. After asking if she's seen his prosthetic, Park confirms and talks about her amputation after a dancing accident. He remembers that then he was small and did not know what to do. He realized that he was not capable of anything except dancing. All his friends abandoned him, and all that remains from the past are prosthetics. Those around him call him a legend, but this only makes him worse. After this story, his world lost all its colors, but that day he saw her. It was like a splash, he doesn't know why, but then he wanted to see these movements again. It seemed to him that the feelings from his childhood were being revived. With this he could shine again. Park turns to Kwon, saying that all this is thanks to her, because she made him realize that there is another world in which he can fly. Therefore he has hope. He closes his eyes in a smile and asks her to take care of him, calling him a teacher. Kwon is silent for a long time, immersed in thoughts about how amazing he is, and without noticing it, she says it out loud. Having heard nothing, Park asks again, but Kwon asks not to pay attention. Kwon hopes they can have fun together, and wishes them health and patience. Park confuses Kwon, thinking it strange that a teacher would call a student Appa, so Kwon asks if he should call him Dong Hee Appa. Park replies that suits him, and she can just call him Dong Hee Appa, which makes Kwon blush. Confused, Kwon asks again. Park replies that many people call him that, and it's even more convenient for him. Stuttering, Kwon tries to call him Dong Hee Appa, but gives up, surprising Park with his embarrassment. Kwon explains that she is the only daughter in the family, and has always wanted an older brother. A group of 3 girls comes into a cafe and is about to have some tteokbokki before school. A dark-haired girl asks a girl named Soya what she will be doing. Soya is forced to run to an agency for an idol internship. The girl turns around and opens her mouth in surprise, clearly recognizing Puck at the table. She tells her friends that she is leaving. Puck gets home, sits on the bed and removes the prosthesis from his leg, complaining about its discomfort and his fatigue. Looking dreamily at the ceiling, he is glad that he has motivation again. Park shouts loudly about the upcoming training. Hyun comes into the room and demands that he not make noise and do his homework. Kwon also gets home, takes off his school uniform and changes into his home clothes. Kwon is called from behind the door to hurry up, to which she replies that she will be there soon. Kwon herself looks in the mirror, thinking about Park and whether there are still passionate people like him. Standing in front of the mirror, she finally comes out of her thoughts and tells herself that she also needs to try. Morning came, school children surrounded the school corridors, staring at an incredibly beautiful girl, a first-year student, passing by. She walks down the corridor amid heated discussions of her person by everyone around her. Meanwhile, Puck sits calmly at his desk in the office, waiting for classes to start. He is thinking about how to make his exit more natural after school. In class they meet a first-year student who has entered the office. A blonde girl comes up to Puck's desk. This is yesterday's girl from the cafe, Soya. Discouraged, Park looks up, clearly not recognizing Soya, and doesn't even notice the hand already flying towards his face. A hard slap sends Puck flying, in which he simultaneously drops chairs and desks standing in the way, and schoolchildren gather around him. Enraged, Puck stands up, rubs his cheek and turns to her, asking what the hell she's doing. The girl clearly recognized him. She glares at him full of anger, and calling him a bastard says that she will never forgive him. The crowd around them has parted and they are whispering, discussing the rumors about Puck. Puck repeats her words in bewilderment. She can't believe that he left. He doesn't understand what he's talking about. The girl is outraged by Puck's lack of understanding. She shouts that he has started b-boying again. In response to the noise, Soya's friends from the cafe from yesterday approach the crowd, suggesting that a fight is brewing. One of them tells her friend about a girl who beat up guys from their class. Last year she danced 17-1, and now she's come and wants revenge. The girl looming over Puck tells him to come to the backyard during the next break. If Park runs away, Soya threatens to kill him. She calls Park Dongyapa and hurriedly leaves the classroom. On the way out, she meets her friends, who ask if this is really true. Then the 3 of them leave. Puck doesn't want to get involved with his past again, but it continues to haunt him. But he still doesn't understand who this girl is. Later, at recess, they meet, and the amazed Park recognizes Soya as the girl who was the youngest on their team. Soya is even more outraged that he didn't notice her around all this time. She asks how he could forget when she is in group photos. Puck responds with indignation that she is never normally seen in the photos. Even so, he didn't recognize Soya. She says that now, as an idol, she has to work hard to become a professional. In response to what was said, Park asks in surprise if Soya left the team. Rubbing his neck, Soya shocks Park with the news that the team has disbanded. Park asks again, but she continues that the team was created by Hyun. In a sense, it was expedient. According to Soya's story, all the participants were Hyun's friends and gathered to see him and Park. Even after Park injured his leg in an accident, they believed in him until the end and tried to follow him. Soya gradually becomes angry again that Park suddenly disappeared, as if he abandoned them all and ran away. Puck listens silently, which is why she holds a grudge against him and thinks only about it when she looks at him. Someday she will want to hear an explanation. Giving it up, she turns around and leaves, leaving Puck alone. Later, Park joins the surprised Kwon on the set. She asks if something happened to him. Park denies it as if nothing happened, and Kwon suggests they practice hypertrophy. She and Kwon begin to train hard. Pak, after listening to her explanations, climbs onto the horizontal bar. Tired of training, Puck sits down and takes a break. The training was hard but fun. Suddenly, Soya appears from behind, frightening Pak. Noting that he looks tired, but happy, she was sitting here initially. Kwon approaches, surprised by the new addition to the company. Soya immediately greets and introduces himself. Soya adds that she is still surprised that Park is studying the horizontal bar exercises. Workout is about bodyweight exercises. The whole body can be harmoniously trained. This is one of the oldest exercise methods. According to her, these days the movement of the naked body is the center of attention in world competitions. Soya talks in detail about what evaluation criteria and types of competitions exist. Park and Kwon are completely incomprehensible. Soya is amazed that they have absolutely no idea what they are talking about and takes out her phone to show them. The athletes alternate in the footage. The first demonstrates a 360-degree swing, turning her body at the highest point and grabbing the horizontal bar. Next, a dead planche is demonstrated, in which the athlete holds the body parallel to the ground. Next on the screen is a body turn, also known as a swing, in which the athlete unwinds on the horizontal bar. Soya looks pleased. She wants to go to the tournament where adepts from all over the world compete. She asks Kwon if she knew about something like this. These are the actions that people who do this exercise strive for. Soya snarkily notes that she heard Kwon was planning to start a club, and even if not, she wanted to do such exercises. Kwon is somewhat confused. She looks at Park and Soya, and after a while she says that she can do that too. With these words, she puts Pak and Soya into a stupor. They turn around and look at her in surprise. Kwon goes to the projectile, climbs on it, and begins the demonstration. Having risen with force, Kwon spins his body around its axis and grabs the horizontal bar. This is a 360-degree swing. Following this, Kwon climbs onto the bars and performs a perfect dead planche. Returning to the horizontal bar, Kwon spins on it, turning his body in a swing. Kwon spins faster on the horizontal bar, at one point launching into the air under the gaze of the amazed Pak. Turning upside down over the horizontal bar, Kwon quickly spins in the air. To complete the trick, Kwon grabs the projectile and calmly steps off it, rubbing his palms. Park admires Kwon's skill. He wouldn't be proud if he only learned how to power lift. Park is determined. He clenches his fist tightly and intends to work to repeat Kwon's success. Turning to Soya, Park asks her thoughts about Kwon's demonstration. From Soya's bulging eyes and her wide-open mouth, you can tell that she is in shock from what she saw. They don't have many activists, especially girls, but she does moves that are difficult even for men. Soya has a lot of questions and finds out that Kwon accidentally started when she was in second grade and practices every day. From her story, it is clear that Kwon had never been on a team and actually learned about the tournaments for the first time. Soya gets Park and Kwon's attention by asking if they have time on the weekend. Full of determination, she points her finger at them and declares that she will show them the world of workout. At the agreed time, the company of Kwon, Park and Soya gathers at the site where many athletes are now training. Athletes demonstrate different workout techniques. Soya leads the group around the site. Puck walks and looks at someone else's workout so much that he involuntarily leans forward while walking. Here in Gyeongbong Park, all the workout groups gather, as Soya talks about. Park and Kwon look around. Genuine delight is visible on their faces. This is the first Gilbong Park in Korea, located in northern Gangdong-gu of Seoul. This is where many workout sports clubs hold meetings or competitions. Local athletes demonstrate amazing skill and level of training. Soya notes how many beautiful bodies there are on this site. Park and Kwon themselves are amazed at how many people there are here. Park's gaze catches on a guy practicing a power-up on the horizontal bar. There are also those who can do it like Kwon. Soya says that such exercises are called dynamic. In workouts are divided into dynamic and static exercises. It is mainly used to combine these two types into freestyle. Gradually the workout exercises turned into a sport. Kwon understands that that's why she watched the foreigners practice. She didn't know that they had so many people doing this. While Kwon was staring at the horizontal bar, one of the trainees approached her and asked if it was her first time here. The stranger notes that the iron bars are too harsh for such a cutie and offers to give her a lift. Kwon refuses, and the guy, amazed by her stubbornness, asks to take a look. Standing under the horizontal bar, Kwon thinks for a moment, but still agrees. Puck continues to look around and is amazed at how good they all are at this. Amid general applause, Puck turns to the guy who is doing push-ups on one arm. The crowd says that he is famous on the internet. His name is Kim Myung-jun. Park is amazed at how Kim does push-ups on one hand, but the guy standing next to him suggests watching what happens next. Kim takes a deep breath and, as she exhales, pushes off the ground with force. His legs rise with the push and sharply push off from the ground. Kim's body, supported by one hand, rotates and his legs rise into the air. Puck, watching the performance, is speechless with surprise. Kim ends the move impressively by placing one arm behind her back and straightening her legs to the sky. The crowd rejoices and the tired Kim slowly rises to his feet amid thunderous applause. He is brought out of his thoughts by Puck, who runs up and asks him to teach him to do the same. Puck shouts to the entire court that this is impressive, and he wants to learn the same. Kim stuns him with her answer, a complete unconditional refusal. Following the departing Kim, Park says that he just wants to learn, but Kim has more important things to do than teaching Park. Puck puffs up with indignation. One of the participants comes up to him and explains that there is no point in interfering during training. Their dialogue is interrupted by Kim, asking about Park's reasons for wanting to learn the same way. Fired up with enthusiasm, Puck responds just to be cool. What Park said makes Kim very angry. He has nothing to teach a guy with such a mentality. Puck doesn't understand what's going on, but the guy who was talking to him grabs his forehead, realizing what's happening. Workout is a no-fault sport, so it builds a strong body to have a strong mind. He can't teach Puck this simply because it's cool. Having said all this, he turns around and leaves. A guy nearby asks Park to understand that Kim is also a human being and is already tired of such requests. Grunting, Park asks the departing Kim if he has fun when he trains. The guy from the platform who heard this opens his mouth wide in surprise. Hearing this, Kim turns around and glares at Puck from under her bangs. Kim is clearly annoyed by what was said and that Park did not understand what he said. Puck screams all over the court. Be it sports or competitions, training without fun is not fun at all. He realizes that Kim's body wouldn't be as strong without willpower, and talks about it. Through gritted teeth, Park says as he gets closer to Kim that those who don't enjoy training outweigh those who just try harder. Kim is furious. He looks up at Puck and challenges him to a duel. Enraged, Park grins broadly, saying that he has never lost to someone like Kim. Park and Kim freeze opposite each other, silently casting angry glances. While searching for Park, Soya goes out to the crowd gathered on the site not far from Park and Kim. She asks what is happening there. In the crowd, she finds the same guy named Han-sung and asks him what happened. Soya exclaims in surprise about what was said. Now there will be a push-up battle. Push-up battle is a competitive method of varying several push-up movements each round. The tense Kim means that if he wins, Park will teach him anything, and if he loses, he will leave the park forever. Looking at Kim defiantly, Park assures that this will not happen, because he is going to win. Soya, who heard this, is sincerely perplexed where Park gets this confidence. Soya understands very well that for Kim all of this is not just 2 push-ups. Currently one of the top South Korean workout athletes, he tells Park to prepare for the worst. However, Park was at one time the best b-boy on the team. In response he throws back the words of King Sejong to Kim. It's so boring here that you want to sleep. A turquoise car rushes along a deserted street, rounding turns. 2 people get out of the car. A tattooed girl indicates to the director that they are there. The man who came out after her looks pleased and hums a melody. When asked by the director to look around and have a snack, Sangi caustically notes that he just wants to drink. As if to himself, he suggests seeing if the best of the best Prince of Statics can drink well. Meanwhile, on the court, Kim and Park are preparing for the competition. Kim takes off his t-shirt, showing off his muscles. Seeing Kim shirtless, the crowd cheers and wildly discusses his coolness and strength. Park doesn't stand aside either, thinking that Kim's body is really good, and the people and atmosphere look tense. Park exclaims how much he enjoys what is happening, and follows Kim by taking off his t-shirt, turning everyone's eyes towards him. The crowd's reaction to Park is radically different. They look at him with faces of complete incomprehension. Han-sung, who is watching what is happening with Soya, is confused and only says that everything is not so bad. Kim can't wait to start, which is what he says. The participants indicate their readiness for the competition. Han-sung explains the rules. Push-up battle is a way to increase the difficulty of push-ups with each round. They need to be completed 30 times per round. Park and Kim stand upright. Han-sung stands opposite to give the go-ahead for the first round. With Han-sung's go-ahead to start, the participants immediately break down and start doing push-ups. Park and Kim begin with equal zeal and tenacity, both determined exclusively to win. While doing the exercise, Park begins to feel his body gradually getting tired. However, Park grins an embittered smile. He sees in this what makes him feel alive. They both succeed in the 30 push-up round, but by now Park is starting to feel terribly short of breath. Han-sung outlines the rules for the second round, in which they will compete in taper push-ups. Despite his fatigue, Park stands up, folds his hands closer to his chest, clenches his teeth, and begins. The participants are on approximately equal terms, but while Park is gritting his teeth, Kim looks absolutely calm. Songyi and the director come to the site where Park and Kim are competing right now. They look around. Songyi notes that the level is no worse than expected. Thanks to SNSTube, many actions can now be easily seen and practiced. Even if it was not at the level of Europe and America, little by little successful stars began to emerge. However, the director adds that being a world star is not enough. The end of the second round is announced. They are interested. Songyi understands that this is probably a battle. The director clearly wants to see this, and they come closer to the general crowd. You can see Park and Kim on the set. Park is shaking violently all over his body, and even though Kim also looks tired, he does not give in. The crowd is already concluding that the newcomer is about to die, while another notes that the push-up battle is much more difficult than it seems. Han-sung moves closer to the exhausted Park and asks if he can continue. Meanwhile, Soya silently watches from the side, clearly concerned about Park's condition. Of course, Park refuses to give up. Even being exhausted, he proposes to start the third round. His words calm Soya down. She smiles, and the excited crowd is already gossiping about Park's coolness. Kim is silent, as if immersed in his deep thoughts about what is happening. Han-sung announces a new exercise, push-ups in the form of an archer shooting a bow, evenly using the whole body. In the new exercise, Park spreads his body on the archer's outstretched arm and the trembling in him intensifies. As he descends, it becomes more and more difficult for him to get up. His back shakes. It is more difficult than it seemed. Looking at Kim performing the exercise next to him, one can note that it is not easy for him either. Despite the difference in physique, Park and Kim seem to be on equal terms in the battle. After 5 minutes, Han-sung announces the end of the third round. Park is exhausted, but still does not give up. Even Kim looks tired. The fourth round is announced. The director closely watches the competition while the crowd discusses the capabilities of the opponents. Kim turns to Park, tells him not to lose strength, to abstain, surprised that he doesn't know that this is not enough to win. Kim notes that there is another guy who is studying. They can watch videos together. Suddenly Park raises his head and it seems to dawn on him that this was indeed his original bet, and with this he amazes Kim. Kim is perplexed that Park started this battle because of this, and he decides to ignore what Kwon told him. Park was having fun playing sports, that's why he forgot. That's what he's talking about. His words attract the attention of the stunned director, who watches even more intently than before. When he trains, he always just wants to know how far he can go. If he can train like Kim, he will have a lot of fun. From what was said, Kim's eyes bulge out. He is in a state of shock. Meanwhile, Han-sung signals the start of the fourth round and a new exercise, one-arm push-ups. By the beginning of the round, Kim was practically boiling with anger. So angry were he from Park's words about the fun of training. Park's words seemed funny and extravagant to him, and with new strength and perseverance he begins the exercise. Watching Kim's determination, the crowd is stupefied by the strength with which he continues the competition. Determined to prove Park wrong and unwilling to forgive him for it, Kim grits her teeth and continues. He will definitely win this battle. This thought does not leave his head, however. At one moment he freezes. Turning his head, Kim notices that his opponent is lying on the ground unconscious. Han-sung freezes, examining Park's body, and in his head he has the same surprise that has matured in the rest of the crowd. The crowd freezes, not understanding what is happening. Soya screams Park's name and runs towards him. Soya falls to her knees in front of Park, trying to figure out if he's okay. Leaning closer to him, Soya hears distinct, quiet snoring. Everything is exactly as the crowd further concludes. Park just lies and sleeps during the round. Han-sung announces the winner. The winner is obviously Kim. The director addresses Songi, calling her cluster. Songi comes closer, indicating that he is listening. Taking off his glasses, the director shows a wide smile, raises his eyebrow and notes that Park is a funny guy and he wants him. Meanwhile, the crowd cheers and all attention turns to the other side. An uncomprehending Han-sung heads towards the crowd on the other side of the court, asking what is going on. Right at this moment, all eyes are on Kwan, who is spinning on the horizontal bar, demonstrating her skills. Holding the horizontal bar tightly, Kwan rises vertically above it. From the height of his position, Kwan sharply stretches his legs down and gives his body rotational inertia. Having accelerated in rotation to incredible speed, she heads upward along the horizontal bar, and at the very last moment, as she lifts her legs, she spins around herself, flying into the air. Having flown up, Kwan makes many sharp turns around its axis, and to top off the trick, she perfectly grips the horizontal bar, supporting her body weight. As the crowd cheers, Han-sung recognizes her movements as a 540-degree swing with high technique, and is amazed at her skill. Sitting next to the barely waking Park, Soya yells at Kwan to be careful. Kwan herself, without stopping her performance, spins up again, preparing to demonstrate a new trick. She picks up speed, her tail of hair fluttering in the oncoming air. Having gained sufficient speed, Kwan sharply pushes off at the very peak of his rise and soars several meters into the air. The silently stunned crowd watches in fascination as her trick is performed. Soya noisily admires the height of her jump, unable to comprehend what is happening. The director, watching from the side, is sincerely interested in who is currently performing on the horizontal bar. The sight he saw makes Puck instantly wake up and direct his gaze to her. Performing a series of somersaults and tucks, Kwan turns over multiple times in the air in all directions. From the peak of the height, she descends in free fall, stretches her hand forward, trying to catch the horizontal bar with it. And at this moment the trick is completed with a perfect power grip that holds Kwan's own weight on the horizontal bar. However, at the last moment, having extinguished the inertia, she weakens her grip and lets go of the horizontal bar. Kwan rushes to the ground, but manages to group himself and, only groaning, carefully lands on his bent legs. Kwan rubs his sore hands, asking himself if it was too slow. She is brought out of these thoughts by the noise of a cheering crowd that is already running towards her. The crowd asks her a lot of questions, admires her technique. They have never seen such a cool freestyle. Soya, standing to the side, confusedly notes to herself that this was expected. This reaction is surprising. Kim stands far away, silently watching what is happening. Finally fully awakened, Park quietly joins in the general admiration. Kwan seems amazing to him. His face changes and now there is melancholy in it. Puck quietly says that he envies them. His gaze does not leave Kwan, who is still fending off questions from the admiring audience. After a while, daylight rises over the park, silence, and people disperse from it. Evening is approaching. A group of Park, Soya and Kwan walks down the street, discussing the past day. Memories spark new determination in Puck, and next time he definitely intends not to lose. Park turns to Kwan. Today she was the best, these are his words. It was a head-scratching experience for Kwan, who was excited to perform in front of a large audience. In front of more people, it was different for her than during normal training. Puck accepts her words with a smile. He understands exactly this feeling, and what she is talking about. With renewed determination, he offers to come back later and crush that worm. Kwan suggests that he should train well for this. Soya, walking ahead, listens, purses her lips, dissatisfied with the fact that she took her at all. As if indifferently, Soya notes that they gather there once a month and recommends that they go after finding out the time. Park is outraged by her words. She should go with them. Soya does not understand why. Because she is not a member of the club. In response to this, Puck offers to join the club together. Without her they would not have learned anything and were just playing sports. They should be together. Kwon also joins his words. She asks Soya to join and only manages to start talking about her capabilities. It turned out that the answer is obvious. Pursing her lips, Soya asks again if they are sure they want to invite her. Park and Kwon rejoice at the addition to the club. Kwon thanks Soya for this. Soya silently watches Puck's enthusiasm and thinks about something of his own. Memories take her back 6 years, when children gathered on the playground and discussed creating a b-boy team. They go through options for what makes them look strong, but it all comes down to plagiarism, as young Soya on the swing watches. Young Pak turns to her and asks the guys about her. She is in the 4th grade at their school. Her family is very rich. A big car comes to school for her, but at home she is like a princess, so her classmates bully her. Puck approaches the swing and hovers over the drooping Soya, addressing her. He only manages to attract her attention, and immediately faces misunderstanding by inviting her to the b-boy team. They are b-boys, but Soya does not understand at all what this means. Park adds that these are dances, very cool. Soya answered in confusion that she was not interested, and it didn't sound cool. Puck interrupts and says not to lie, because all this time she was looking at them and wanted to join. He again calls her with him. So Pak suggested having fun together, which amazed her. She sat and looked at him with undisguised surprise. Soya couldn't believe it, and asked hopefully if she could really have fun with him. In her memories, he just suddenly disappeared. He thinks about this, looking at his back. Soya stands behind him and watches with the understanding that he has not changed at all. Deep evening falls on the city. The first stars are visible in the sky. Park and Kwon say goodbye to Soya and then walk off to the opposite side of the street together. For some time, Kwon and Park walk along the same path. The street is illuminated almost exclusively by stars. By the time they say goodbye, Kwon decides to go a different route. They had fun today. Their next meeting is on Monday. On the way home, Puck digests everything that happened. There were a lot of amazing people in the park. Remembering Kim, he tries to understand why he was angry at his words about fun in sports. Because doing without fun is pointless. It's as if Puck is inflamed for the first time. Whether it's Kim or salted pollock caviar, he can't lose to him, and won't allow him to say stupid things again. Puck is knocked out of his thoughts by the stranger's voice, who is amazed at the scope of Puck's dream. He turns sharply at the stranger who brought him out of his thoughts, and asks the one who he is. The director appears in front of Park on a dark street, starting a monologue about how the boy cannot cope with the strongest opponent in Korea. Puck is tense, the veins on his face are bulging. He repeats his question and asks if the director was listening. The same one, ignoring the question asked, continues that his goal is not impossible, hinting that with his support everything can work out. Puck responds with incomprehension, but at the same time invites the stranger to quietly leave. The director is surprised by this and reaches for the business card holder. The business card of the CEO of Famous is stretched from the man's hand to Puck Maker, a famous clothing brand. The man explains that he is now investing not only in fashion, but also in workout, looking for good athletes, and Puck accidentally caught his eye. However, he also notes that apparently Puck's legs don't look very good and asks how this happened. Pak became nervous and asked whether the director really needed to know about this. The director, in turn, is just curious. If Puck doesn't like it, he won't insist. After some thought, Puck finally makes up his mind and lowers himself to roll up his trouser leg. His prosthesis appears before the director's eyes. Puck talks about how his leg was cut off due to an accident. For some time, the director freezes in a stupor, having no idea what to say at all. At one moment, his face changes dramatically, his pupils narrow, and his mouth opens in surprise that Puck is missing one leg. All this time he thought that Puck was just uncomfortable with his leg, but he didn't have it at all. He refuses to believe that Puck did push-ups on one leg. It probably hurt with one leg. Looking at the embarrassed Puck at this moment, the director concludes that he may be much more interesting than he could even think. Upon arriving home, Kwon turns to Ji-yoon, indicating his return. Ji looks unhappy. She asks why Kwon is so late, and if she knows that she is late for dinner, Kwon is surprised by her presence. The answer to Kwon's question is simply to clarify the obvious, that she arrived late. For a moment, Kwon freezes in surprise. She is extremely amazed to see her mother at home. Mom immediately inquires about what Kwon was up to late, and whether she was relaxing too much on the weekend. In response, Kwon deftly evades the topic, counter-asking whether Mom has had dinner, since it's time for her to go. Kwon replies that there is a lot of time in the past and Mom needs to eat. She wearily replies that she doesn't have time. Mom turns around and with a stern look warns Kwon not to be lazy without her and get ready for school. After a couple of moments of silence, Kwon answers in the affirmative and asks not to worry, but Ji turns away, pursing his lips in displeasure. Meanwhile, on the street, Puck is talking with the director about the battle in the park. To put it bluntly, he likes Puck. The ability to perform exercises with one leg is very good for someone just starting out, he says. Park seems to really enjoy what he does, as the director says. There are good guys everywhere. Businessmen take them. The capital is not bad, but the frequency of training can be changed. He wants to create a culture where he can enjoy sports as before. A director looking for new friends. A hand reaches out to Puck for a greeting handshake. It's the director's hand. Looking into his eyes, the man smiles and invites him to join them. Struck by such a proposal, Puck is dumbfounded with surprise. And what Pak answered remained in that day. Now at recess on a new day, answering Soya's question, he chews and talks about his refusal. Completely confused, Soya widened her eyes, hesitantly asking again about what Pak had said. He himself said that this is Famous Maker, the most famous branded clothing store, and its director and creator is named Joseph. Soya doesn't understand how he could just refuse, but for Pak this offer was a little unexpected. Park has always been a strange guy to make decisions. Soya, who knows this, only sighs tiredly, looking intently at the carefree him. Meanwhile, Puck himself, slowly chewing his lunch, remembers the previous evening and his conversation with Joseph. Then the completely dumbfounded Joseph fell into hysterics, shouting almost in tears that they needed to do this. Joseph doesn't understand whether Pak really isn't waiting for the creation of a new culture on Korean soil, and Pak really isn't waiting. Bowing his head, Puck explains that it's not that he can't do it, he just doesn't know how. Puck's face expressed a particularly aggressive determination. He loudly claims that he already has a teacher. With this, Puck puts Joseph into outright confusion. He does not know what to answer and how to understand what was said. Puck stands in a proud pose and repeats that he already has a teacher and going to another would be a betrayal. Puck, with all his self-confidence, answers Joseph's question that his first-year teacher is from his own school. An attempt to explain that Joseph is not talking about this at all was unsuccessful. Puck is still adamant. Once a teacher, always a teacher. Joseph grabs his forehead, not understanding what is wrong with Puck. He suspects a mania for martial arts novels. However, Puck turns to Joseph again, because he has another reason. Park says that he wants to become the best of the best in this on his own. With all his will and determination, he declares that he will definitely put his whole soul into this matter. Joseph looks at Puck silently for a while, digesting what he said, and then just asks if that's all. The conversation between Soya and Park is interrupted by Kwon bursting in with a joyful exclamation. She brought and shows the club application. The required number of participants has been collected. Now they need to fill it out, and they will be assigned a person in charge. The club was created faster than Park could have thought. Soya asks if Kwon has thought about what she will do. Kwon doesn't even come close to understanding what he's talking about, and still doesn't know what to do. Soya, after some thought, suggests that Park and Kwon consider participating in the competition. Puck seems to have an epiphany and agrees that this will also be a club activity. Gyeobong Park sometimes hosts competitions, with up to 30 people there, says Soya, who did push-ups and hand-holds. Large competitions are held abroad, in which hundreds of people participate, but in Korea there is still no such scale. A question is heard from the window, which distracts the whole company from the conversation. What is she talking about? Puck suddenly jumps up and goes to the window, opening it wide. Leaning further out the window and raising his head, Puck sees a helicopter right now circling over the school building. Naturally, such an event does not go unnoticed and all the schoolchildren run out to take a closer look. Hearing screams that the helicopter has stopped at the site, Park calls out to Kwon and Soya, beckoning them to come take a look as well. The helicopter is hovering in the air over the sports field, and right now a crowd of students is surrounding the area around it. Joseph, leaning out of the helicopter, holding the handrails, laughs joyfully, saying that he has not visited school for a long time. Secretary Song asks Joseph if he is satisfied with the height, to which he receives a satisfied and deeply positive answer. Watching Joseph in the helicopter, Puck can't believe he recognizes him as the CEO. A moment later, Joseph jumps out of the helicopter and, rushing his head towards the ground, freely dives down. The crowd's mouths drop open as soon as he jumps, and Kwon grabs his mouth, closing it in horror. Joseph is getting closer to the ground, diving towards the horizontal bars. He hums a song under his breath, "Winners do not die." Having approached the horizontal bar, Joseph deftly grabs it and spins around. A series of rapid rotations is followed by a jump, after which Joseph stands up and balances on the horizontal bar with his feet. Straightening up in his stance, Joseph warms up and says he smells an almost ripe aroma. The stunned audience, along with Park, Soya and Kwon, listens attentively. Joseph means the smell of the magnificent berries. Having said this, Joseph takes off his protective glasses and turns to Puck, letting him know that he is not missing out on what he likes. Each school has its own way of opening a club. In their high school, when 3 participants gather with applications, the school hires a person in charge. The person in charge must be a regular teacher and does not have the right to run the club. Joseph happily exclaims that he is glad to see them and introduces himself as their new teacher in charge. What was said plunges the trio into shock, and Kwon stands out from them, standing as if not understanding anything. Their conversation takes place in the director's spacious office, with the director himself sitting behind Joseph at the table. Standing behind the satisfied director right now is Secretary Song. The amazed Puck clarifies whether Joseph was a teacher from their school. Having received a more than obvious answer, he asks how then he became one. Joseph says that this is a secret, but Song, who is massaging director's shoulders, raises an agreement above his head, which seems to hint. As evening approaches, Joseph Lee offers to meet, introduces himself and says that he is now their responsible teacher. Without any special pleasantries, Puck just grins at him and, to Joseph's surprise, calls him a fraud. Smiling provocatively, Joseph assures that there is no lie here, he is a teacher, and he even has a certificate. Joseph turns his attention to Kwon and Soya and asks them to introduce themselves. Soya smiles brightly at Joseph and introduces himself, still in his head not believing that it is him. Joseph expresses his joy at meeting her, saying to himself that she is the aspiring idol he knows about. Kwon also introduces himself, but immediately turns to Joseph asking for a favor. Joseph recognized her as a child who showed an excellent level of workout. That's when he saw these tricks, he says under his breath. Joseph explains to Kwon that he was in the park that day. He was hiding, but he saw her really cool performance. Joseph looks back at Puck, silently guessing that she is Puck's teacher. He is convinced of it. Joseph turns to Puck and addresses him, asking what happened to him. Puck looks at him in disbelief. Joseph adds that this is a club event, and it's worth having fun together. Park stares at Joseph, ignoring everything he said under Kwon's bewildered gaze. It's already getting dark outside, so Joseph announces that it's already late and the whole company is free. After a while, Puck returns home. The whole family sits at the table and Mom brings a special dish for dinner. There is a plate of ramen on the table, which the mother happily presents to her sons. Puck doesn't understand what's special about it. Mom emphasizes that this is a special ramen, because there are 2 yolks in 1 egg. Mom asks Puck what he thinks about this ramen, and if he thinks it's special. His brother gets nervous. Puck himself doesn't hear. He is immersed in thoughts about Joseph and the reasons for his appearance at school. Without noticing it, he curses. Puck is brought out of his trance by the words of his alarmed brother that these are not the words that he should have said. Realization came quickly. The almost crying mother heard that her ramen was tasteless. She had already thought of something to be offended by. Throughout the house there are shouts at Puck to apologize to his mother, his excuses and sad acceptance that it is already late.